a fish in the sea never gets thirsty.
Okay.
And it's like we're completely surrounded with the most like insane reality, and we're totally oblivious to it.
Life is really just trying to experience a set of emotions. And we think that if I get this body, I get this house, that I'll get that experience when I get that. But what you're saying with this fish thing, with the fish is trying to get water, but then it already has infinite accessibility of water because it lives in the water.
Yeah.
We have access to experience that already, which is joy and happiness. And ironically, the path to joy and happiness can often lead to that. Yet we think we have to go through massive struggle, and then we'll get that body or we'll get that financial success.
And we deep down inside know that they want to be more and experience more. Now, the irony is they already are more, and they already can experience everything. We are looking outside of ourselves to experience the reality that's already present.
If someone's experiencing this and, they've got deep into this and you're like, man, like, why am I so tired? Why am I so depressed? What's one thing that you can, tell them? Like, what's one thing they can do right now?
I would say
if you are tired of fighting the scale, I think it's time for you to start fighting stress. In today's episode, I want to talk about a heavy topic for most people, which is depression. And who better yet to have here than my friend Yoni, therapist, yogi. But every time we spend time together, I always feel at peace. And for those of you guys who are visiting us for the first time, we are a fitness type of podcast, but something that we do differently is we do talk about the mental health side of things because it is such an important piece to this. And if you master both of these concepts together, you will be able to achieve the physical goals that you have, the mental goals that you have. Welcome back. This is round 2.
Thank you.
This is like a long time coming. You've connected. You're the connector. A bunch of the podcast guests that we've had has been a connection through you. And one thing that I noticed about these guests that you're bringing on, they're very similar to me. Emotionally, we're unstable. Whether we're anxious, overwhelmed, burned out, or depressed, right? You've somehow connected people. I was like, oh, these guys are speaking my language. So as you guys are listening to this, primarily why this topic is so important is because I've dealt with it. And I have come to understand this emotion, but also started to kind of cultivate tools to be able to get out of it. I want to talk about depression, man. And one, like kind of a concept around it, like a definition around it so it's more concrete because it's a big topic. And then 2, maybe some pragmatic ways that you've helped yourself, maybe your clients to kind of get out of this space.
Yeah. And maybe we'll also get more experiential, but from a pragmatic place. Like, not just talk in the high ups about what's happening in the mind and the chemicals.
Yeah.
And not so much in theory, but also like practically, like what are things we see? How can we learn and explore it? Like, conversationally.
Well, so I want to give you some context because I don't want to confuse you because you were like, dude, depression can be a big blanket. You need to explain more of what's happening. So my depression, I think, stems more from overwhelm and from burnout. When I feel like I'm doing all of this work and then nothing is happening, I end up secluding myself. I like pull away. I don't talk to people. I stay in my room. I'm in the dark light. I don't want to wake up. Right? Those are some things that I notice, especially during Q4, which is like the fall seasons. And I see it in my journal too. I think that's another value of why you should journal your thoughts and your emotions and your experiences, because you start seeing a trend. And like my depression stems from like me just not really wanting to do anything. And I think it's important because there's a lot of clients that I get that are no longer motivated. They're tired. Why am I even working so hard? And it's not just in their fitness, it's their entire life, right? And if it's not taken care of, what we tend to see is these suicidal tendencies, and I just don't see them anymore, right? So that's kind of my concept around it and the context that I really want to uncover. Right?
And it's still really broad.
Yeah, it's really broad, So what is your definition of someone, I mean, that's like that your perception of your definition of depression? What is it?
Part of the issue why it's broad is because we're taking one word to describe like just in hearing you the past minute,
Yeah.
I had like 10 different ideas of what could it be. And then I was just like, oh, it's a circadian thing. Oh, it's a belief about who he should be versus who he is. Oh, it's a, it's pushing himself beyond his capacity and
Yeah.
expecting more when he's not that. Or, oh, a disconnect from himself, spiritual disconnect, meaning,
Okay.
connection. So I went to like a million places and I'm like, oh, it's also not enough daylight,
Yeah.
like, so there's like a million areas just in what you said of where it can go. So,
Okay. So let's talk about the
yeah,
circadian part.
yeah, sure.
So what do you mean by circadian in terms of like you're seeing in me and
Sure. I mean, part of it is, I mean, we're animals that are governed by planetary systems around us, just like
right?
every other creature around us. We don't live in a white lab coat facility,
Yeah.
and humans have always been impacted by the sun and the moon. It's
Yeah.
actually crazy. There's like research out there that shows, let's say, a little bit different than depression, but let's say for manic depressive disorders, that there's a direct correlation with whether or not they saw the full moon
Yeah.
prior to their manic or depressive episode. If they've seen the full moon, they're more likely to go manic. If they haven't seen the full moon, they're more likely to go depressive in that cycle.
Wow.
So,
Okay.
and these are like, it's just literature. You can just Google
It's
it,
just
like manic
it's
depressive.
nature.
Yeah, so we're underestimating our impact of the planetary systems around us and how it affects our body. But
Mhm.
every morning the sun comes up, it raises our cortisol, it gets us going.
Yeah.
So, our energy and is determined by the, by the planets around us as well. So,
Yeah.
if we're not up when the sun is up, well, our body's going to be thrown off.
Mhm.
We're not getting enough vitamin D, just a simple like vitamin standpoint.
Mhm.
We're going to be lower energy. We're going to
Yeah.
have more fatigue.
I-
So if you're not around, if you don't have any sunlight getting into your body
Mhm.
and you're working all day in an office, and the sun is already out for less hours,
Mhm.
then yeah, you'll probably be lower energy, more fatigued, and perhaps sadder too,
Yeah.
because you have these things you want and you can't really get there because your body is limited now that there's less nutrients in its
Dude,
system.
as you're speaking, I remember one of my depressive bouts where I was just sitting in the couch and watching like documentaries and Discovery Channel.
Well, that's depressing too.
Dude, I was watching, and I think like, dude, the God works in very interesting ways. But it was an episode on crabs, like in their shells. So, anyways, you guys can probably type it in. But these crabs, they grow really rapidly, and they break through their shells a few times in their lifetime. I don't even know how many times. Just type it in ChatGPT, you'll find it. But what they do is they crawl in the deepest, darkest caves and holes by themselves, and then they shed, right, this shell, which is actually extremely painful. Imagine breaking all of your bones and putting new ones in. That's what these animals were doing. And I'm sitting there all depressed, and I'm like, wait, what if my cycles are just as natural as me breaking bones, but we have it in this format, right?
Yeah.
It's like, I think like what you said, like these disorders become labeled disorders, but they're just normal.
They're
We just like
functioning. Yeah, all disorders are just human functions taken out of context.
yes.
So,
Tell me more about
yeah,
that.
let's say what you just mentioned about the crabs
Mhm.
or bears. They go into hibernation. No one goes, "Oh my god, they have major depressive disorders in the
Right.
winter."
Mhm.
It's like they understand like this is their season. They just follow their body.
Yeah.
So I also wonder if there's something seasonal about how much we move and hustle and push, and maybe there's a time to hustle and there's a time to rest.
Yes.
And like that's also a possibility that our bodies. The reason why I say like possibility is because I'm come to realize everyone's different. Like everyone's body is completely unique and their mind is completely unique. So
Yeah.
I do believe that there's certain like archetypical ways that we could be, but there's something about just simple like exploration. Like
Mhm.
I'm seeing every fall time that my energy dips down.
Mhm.
Well, maybe just like the leaves are falling off, the tree is not dying. It's just
Right.
building its roots deeper.
Mhm.
So what if what's going on is you're like trying to push and make production at a time when it's time to dig your roots in deeper,
Yeah.
clarify who you are, where you're going, your mission, your value, your purpose, what you're contributing to yourself and the world, like really root down into who you are.
Yeah.
And then instead of it being a low production time, it's like it's a propagation time. It's a time for like, inebriating yourself with these concepts that
Mm-hmm.
will flourish, come next season.
Mm-hmm.
So if you take it out of like, I need to be producing today, as opposed to like, well, there's a season. Everything has seasons. Maybe we're also seasonal to some extent.
Mm-hmm.
And maybe we view it as we should always be producing because we live in a world where we have heat and AC, and we could always just, and
We have
you can just
unlimited
work,
light.
unlimited light, unlimited resources, go, 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 go. But our bodies are not evolved like that. Our bodies still need naps, still need to eat food, and still need to, I think there's even research on
sleep.
like, I might be wrong, but I've heard that, like if you use a straw when you're sipping, like a drink, the body doesn't know what it's drinking until like a couple of moments later.
Wow.
So it actually means you're like kind of biohacking your system in a bad way because you're not giving the body preparatory time to understand what the nutrients that are needed that it's going to absorb. So the acids in the stomach, everything is not prepared. So we created a straw in a second, and then the body needs like a million years to catch up. So we create a straw like, that smoothie is great.
Yeah.
And then, but the system is like, wait, what is this liquid?
Yeah.
Okay, I'm gonna have to take it to the bloodstream. Let's communicate to the gut. Okay, start preparing the following acid.
Yeah.
Start preparing the following, stomach, juices to digest this.
Right.
As opposed to initially you put your lip on it and it would immediately go to the gut.
Mm-hmm.
So we're like kind of biohacking our system negatively,
right,
in a lot of these ways. So I think part of it could also be, and this is where I'm like, it depends on you.
Yes.
When you look at yourself and you think about every time autumn season comes around, are you looking at as you need to keep producing, or are you looking at like a big picture? We have this guy who's living for 100 something years, and from here to here, does it always produce? Does it go through waves just like the ocean? Like just like almost everything else in the world, everything has ups and downs and moves lefts and rights. Down I don't think needs to be like, I'm depressed, go away. The ocean recedes only to allow a bigger wave. In fact, a real recession means a really big wave. So it doesn't have to mean like poor me, go away, but there could be something. And I'm asking you, what do you think for yourself?
Yeah.
When you look at these moments, is it you're like trying to push yourself and not listening? Like maybe my body needs to just, all right, have that, I don't know, nice warm drink and just enjoy the fall season.
Right. An extra hour of sleep.
Just an hour of sleep. Yeah. Just start thinking about like what you've done, process it.
Reflect.
It's like reflect. Yeah. Here we are again. Another year. Wow. And the like kind of like the trees, they grew, they brought leaves and then they're dying off and falling to the ground.
Yeah.
And the tree is like, it's all it's doing is just taking the reason why the symptom is the leaves falling down.
Right.
What's really happening is the energy is going to the roots.
Yeah.
So it's just receding its energy. So for us, we're like we're trying to be a tree. Like I'm gonna keep giving green leaves, and it's like you're not an evergreen. Maybe there's something to be said about rest. Doesn't mean avoiding. Resting can be waking up at a good same time and meditating or journaling more or thinking about, kind of like, all right, what have I achieved this year?
Yeah.
What have I owned?
Yeah.
What can I own about what I achieved?
So good.
Yeah.
So guys, this is why I like Yoni in these podcasts, because of these metaphors of trees and leaves. But one concept that I want you to grasp, because I want you guys to tie this in, the crazy workouts that I've done in the past, 1,000 Murphs, the 1 hour world records, the 12-hour workouts, was a byproduct of what he's talking about, the root work, which is actually the mental work side of this, which is the breath work, the reflection, the breathing, the like settling down, reconnecting with yourself, reconnecting with your loved ones.
Slowing down to speed up.
Slowing down to speed up. Like, I know it's going to be boring for me to talk about this, but like this is why I really want to hone in on the mental health side. It's not just mental health, it's almost mental understanding that this is the part of the process. This is not you fixing anything. This is you learning the sun and the moon. And for some reason, I think we've highlighted the sun, highlighted the leaves with culture, with big foods, big pharma, and we forgot this whole other side of health. And I want to shed light on it because I think it's the secret. It's the one that's underserved and no one really talks about it. So, and just like
let's say for you, I'm gonna interrupt you here.
Yeah.
Like, let's say for you, it's like, because I think instead of getting like in theory about it, let's like dive in, and because the last thing I want people to go like, oh, that could be a good theory. Oh, that could be a good theory. Like, let's like dive in. Like,
yeah,
when you hear this for yourself, do you think, okay, actually, I need to slow down more to speed up? Yeah, sure, but I'm not afraid. Like, people are afraid of speeding up or slowing down. You know,
Yes.
when I have some clients come into my office and they're ill, they're unwell with something, and I can go, hey, I can get you better in a week or two.
Yeah.
Are you ready?
Right.
And sometimes they go, between you and I, no, I can't. I don't know. I'm scared of what life would look like without my disorder I had for the past 10 years. And if we just change it, then no, I'm not ready for the implications of responsibility, ownership, Some people struggle to speed up.
Wow.
But equally scary is slowing down.
Yeah.
You know, and I don't think one is better than the other. It's like doing only one side of the push-up. It's like, you know, we need to do both sides. So it's not like it's not a complete movement.
Yeah.
You know, so I'm curious for you, when you hear these things, do you go, you know what? I actually am pushing when I probably should just explore what that was like to just not work as hard, not achieve as much, as opposed to take stock of my achievements and then take stock of where I want to go. 100%. Like, for you, does that make sure? Yes or no? Either way is fine. But that's an avenue of what we can call depression. It could be a lack of appreciation for yourself, for who you are, what you achieved. And then you're like, oh, I'm a good for nothing, blah, blah, blah. And the reality is you did a great year. It was a smashing success. And you're stuck in this thought of how you could have done one thing.
Exactly.
Instead of just going, hey, that's really good. I'm actually impressed. And then from there you go, you know what I want to do? I want to keep honing in on that thing, So you start building your roots more. And then from there you pivot to a whole new direction. So thank God you stop and slow down, because then you know. So I'm just speaking this out with you. Are you like, oh, that actually speaks to me? Or are you like, honestly, I'm not sure if that speaks to me? Either way, because we can go many ways with this conversation, and we could spend the next hour talking about possibilities of what depression could be.
Yeah.
So
10 years ago, my muscle to speed up it's very like pronounced. Like I can do that. I can speed up really quickly. But 10 years ago, I didn't have the muscle to slow down. So I panicked a lot of times. So anytime I'm forced to slow down, I get to this, I almost become hyperactive just to avoid it, which only prolongs that depression bout. Right. But now it's a lot better. I actually have the muscle to slow down. I was like, these are the seasons, these are the quarters, these are the things that happen. How can I leverage that?
Yeah.
Right. And now I have tools for it.
Yeah.
And I can actually get out of it much faster, and not only get out of it, but I actually enjoy it. I'm like, this is the time for me to recover.
Nourishing.
It's nourishing.
Yeah.
And another big epiphany was like, in my fitness, it's never, I'm getting strong. If that was the case, I'd be like a world record. I would hold every single weightlifting and endurance records. But the truth is, you have ups and downs in fitness. And I never struggle with that. I understand that. I need a deload this week. I need deload this month for this particular injury, probably. And then I'm going to ramp up again. But anytime it comes into the mental side, like we have this, at least for me, I have this perception that mentally I should get strong. I'm always motivated to do all of these things. And then the moment that doesn't kick in, I like double panic. And I still do sometimes. But then I'm like, dude, check yourself. Right?
Well, think about it, like your brain actually is constantly taking breaks. So right now, just try this. You take, audience or you, whatever, just take your hand and close your right nostril and exhale, and then close your left nostril and exhale. And you'll notice one maybe close or open more than the other. Do you notice one?
One has more air. The other one has like some clogs in it.
And you'll notice if you did a couple hours later, it may switch the other way.
Right.
So what happens is you're, at least in yoga tradition, the one that's active means, let's say my right, for me, it's, well, that's almost pretty even, but it's my left one's a little more open now.
Yeah.
So that means my right side of my brain is more active, which means my left brain is less active. It's kind of taking a nap. So like we think we're always on. We're actually not always on. Our brain is constantly switching back and forth which one is operating. Your brain is like almost never fully operating. In yogic tradition, there's in that, let's say every 2 to 3 hours, your brain switches which side is active and your nostrils switch sides. Assuming you don't have a deviated septum or some injury or whatever, it switches back and forth. And there's like a little gap, like a few minutes in that, maybe 1 to 3 hour period where both your nostrils are activated. And at that time, you're actually good for nothing. So your brain just can't produce, and it can't, it can't like call it rest. It's in this like middle stage.
Yes.
And at that stage, it's great for meditation.
Yeah.
So it's considered like Sushumna. It's like the best time for meditation is that 3-minute gap. And even if you have zero meditation experience, if you find you're breathing out of both nostrils equally and you close your eyes, you'll rocket ship.
I love it.
It's all timing. So my point is that we think we're growing, but there's also part of us always napping.
That's always, we're always both happening at the same time.
Yeah. So, and I think it's something about, we've lost respect for nature. We've lost respect for a certain just like inherent. I was talking to someone else about this recently. They're like, like you have to connect to the earth, and the earth is like something outside of us. And I'm like, I mean, we are as earth as it gets. Yeah. We're literally like physical matter. It's like literally like every part of me will decompose into 100% earthly matters.
We're made out of that too,
yeah, it's like literally, it's like, I mean, there's other, fluid systems and electrical systems, etc. But we're underestimating how much of an bioorganic creature that we are. And every creature under the sun sleeps, it rests, it mates, it feeds, it oscillates.
Yeah.
So we have like, our culture has given us tremendous opportunity to expand, but it's also has blinded us to like certain basic realities of like, where am I? And by the way, with the speeding up to slow down, I'm realizing now I also struggle slowing down. Even though I meditate all this much, I still, for me, like, it's so much easier for me to just like, I feel like it's easier for me to start a new business every day than to meditate, even now.
Yeah.
I like meditating, but I find it's still hard. It's never gotten to the point where I'm like zero, it's always like, well, I think I should make a tea I think I need to clean the room.
Yeah.
I have a phone call to make. Like my mind still tries to, hijack the situation. And also it doesn't want to slow down. It doesn't want to pivot.
Yeah.
I think it's very dangerous territory for our minds when we're calm. When we're calm, your mind has to review itself, dispose of old neurons, activate itself in a very different way, and your body goes through a transformation.
Yeah, that's why it's so difficult for people to just sit still.
It's gonna be terrifying. Think of like your neurons.
Yeah.
How many things you want to do, how many itches you want to scratch at that moment, how many like projects and thoughts that come up, and you're like, I'm just still gonna sit here, and your body's like, I have to respond. Right. So you're not responding. So your body's spending all these neurons, and you're not responding. So the neurons get sent, and there's no response. And after 10 of those messages, 1,000 of those messages, 10,000, you're getting thousands of messages every second, right? So at least. So every time you get these messages, and you're like, I'm not gonna respond, then your body's like, well, screw that. Let's get rid of the messages.
Yeah.
So he starts killing off your old neurons. So your body's like literally at like, what's the word? Mortally threatened.
Yeah.
Like your mind is like, oh no. Like, so I think when we slow down, we pivot, we change, and that's threatening. So
listen, if you're trying to lose weight, but you're just frustrated because you just can't seem to see any results, we would love to help you out. Now, we've been helping thousands of our athletes over the course of a decade by crafting personalized programs that are not only sustainable, but also effective. Now, if you're ready to transform your health, click on the show notes below, book a call with one of our coaches. We'd love to help you out. Now back to the show. Peace.
So a part of me thinks about, how we don't want to do that.
Yeah.
Because,
I feel like depression forces you to get into these meditative states just naturally.
Yeah.
Right? Like I want to disappear. I don't want to learn anything new. I don't want more neuron interactions with people.
Yeah.
You just hide away in a mountain or a
Yeah.
cave or a garage, and you just like you're forced to meditate,
Yeah.
right? So it's
And is
like,
that's the thing about it. We're calling that depression.
yeah,
But that could
fascinating.
actually be like a massive transformation. That's like the hero journey.
Yeah,
He goes to the cave and he comes back with Superman powers, like,
or an
or it's
Iron Man
Batman.
suit.
Yeah, Iron Man suit or a Batman. Isn't it like Zach's story? Like,
Yeah,
so these people are like they're bottom of bottoms, and then they like wake into a whole new reality.
exactly.
So I just think it's like, I think, yeah, it could be depression. We can call it whatever we want,
Yeah.
but I think we have these states that are normal. They're
Mhm.
actually a normal part of our growth. It's
Mhm.
a spiral where we're going in and out of different states.
Mhm.
And then we get so fixated on the one thing we want, we don't take a big picture and look at like every year I keep doing the same circle.
Mhm.
Maybe it's a circle. Maybe my body goes through the cycle.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So this is going to be one of the ones that probably gets clipped, right? The
Mhm.
path of healing depression, or you can even say anxiety, is accepting that it's a function. But not only accepting that, but I also want to accept it even deeper, that it's actually part of healing.
Mhm.
That what you're experiencing right now is actually a healing mechanism.
Mhm.
And for me, if someone comes in with knee pain, I'm not freaking out. I'm actually really excited because it's telling me a story.
Mhm.
And now I just got to unravel that. So let's turn the page. Let's go make sure where this pain is actually happening from X, Y, and Z. And for you, probably when someone's like overwhelmed and anxious, you're probably like, is this world going to end, or are you looking at it like me, like you're
Same as
excited
you.
about
Yeah.
it?
It's just like when people come in with like, I mean, I would say like, let's say on the trauma level, like talk about
Mhm.
like world news, like we've seen like, oh my God, I can't even look at the news. I've worked with a lot of those people,
Yeah.
or like horrific situations, national news,
Mhm.
and I a couple times I'm like, oh, can I help them?
Mhm.
And what I realize, it's the same thing for everyone. It's the same system. Like the body works the same way, and often, yeah, it's just like it's. I'm blanking on the author. There's an author that says, it's an old book. He says that this is an age of anxiety.
Mhm.
It's so in part because we're anxious. We choose to be anxious about anxiety.
Yeah.
So it's
It's like
same
a
thing.
double whammy.
Yeah, it's we create a story around a story. Like, and even with suicide, actually, it's an
Yeah.
interesting area where it's super taboo, and people are like, "Oh my God, someone thought of suicide." Well, I hate to break it to you, most people think of suicide at some point in their life,
Right.
and most people don't kill themselves.
Right.
Like, so
Yeah.
thinking about suicide is not indicative of anything past a thought. It's not
Yeah.
a big deal. And I have clients that come to me sometimes who are like,
They
"Dude,
have suicidal
I got to tell you,
tendencies.
man, I still have suicidal thoughts." And
It's
then
like,
I'm like,
cool.
and he was
Yeah.
like, "That's it." I'm like, "Well, aside from the thought, anything else that goes on? How's your day?" I said, "Everything's fine."
Yeah.
So I'm like, "So you could have thought about an avocado sandwich. Like it didn't matter, just a thought." And he was like, I see the guy's relief on his face. He's like, "You're right. Like
Like nothing's wrong with
I
me.
thought something was wrong with me. I'm just normal and had a thought because I had a tough day." And I'm like, "Screw this."
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah.
So there is something to be said. Like people can be suicidal because life is really hard.
Yeah.
And sometimes people are suicidal because they actually really want to have a good life
Yeah.
and that they don't want to accept a mediocre life.
Mhm.
So they could be like, they actually really don't want to live anything less than the life they want to live. So
It's
people
yeah.
could might want to die, and it could be a sign of vitality.
Mhm.
And there could also be people who really want to go,
Yeah.
and that's a whole nother conversation. So like even the word suicidal, which is like the most scary taboo thing, for me, the better question is, what's their history? Have they ever attempted suicide?
Yeah.
Because everyone's thought of it before.
Yeah. What's going on in your life? What's different?
Yeah,
You
and,
know?
and and also like people can have a really tough life, think of suicide, and go like, I have family and kids. It's just not on the table.
Yeah.
But like my life is really hard, and maybe if I didn't have this meaning or my religion or God or whatever it is or my
Mhm.
family, maybe I would consider it more.
Yeah.
But that's not on the table.
This
You
is
know,
this is
so
like when it gets deep into depression. Here's what's cool about
yeah,
what you said there. I agree with it. When
yeah.
people talk about suicide, I don't really like freak out. I'm not gonna call the cops and be like, check on them.
You're talking about like calling the
This
ambulance.
yeah,
Yeah,
yeah. I'm not calling 511 or whatever 411 to call it in, because I've accepted that's actually just part of the process and it's just normal, right? Just reducing that stigma, because I see two things. I've seen people get suicidal tendencies because the life is not where they want to be, because it just sucks. Like they're not making any money. They just divorced their wife, their kids are taken away from them. They're living in a car. I get that, right? I've seen people commit suicide and have suicidal tendencies, but we also see suicidal tendencies with the rich, right? They have it all. They have the fan. That's why you see all these celebrities. They have all the money in the world, and then they still commit the suicide component to it, right?
Yeah.
And for me, I started to use some of those signals. It was like, I'm not in alignment of who I am. If I'm getting into these depressive bouts or overwhelming or even suicidal thoughts, there's a misalignment on who I am and how I want to live my life, right? So instead of what most people do is they'll just eat their emotions away, or they'll take drugs and or other vices, like they'll just forget about those things. They'll just mask what they actually need to work on.
Yeah.
Right? So what are your thoughts around that? Like the misalignment, why you're creating some of these things is potentially because you're misaligned in who you're supposed to live.
The thought that comes to my mind is how few people can handle themselves.
Yeah.
Meaning we have like a belief of who we need to be.
Yeah.
And we can't take time to look in the mirror and see who we really are.
It's frightening for a lot of people.
And we're so terrified of who we are.
Yeah.
You know, and I think if we really look at who we are, we're amazing.
Yes.
But we never get to, we're terrified of what we'll see.
Yeah.
Or maybe we see it's amazing and we're terrified of that. That's maybe a more philosophical conversation. But I think people can't handle looking inside.
Yeah.
And they're terrified. So yeah, it's easier to look outside. And that's an interesting thing. Yeah, you'll see with, you know, very outwardly successful people, like he had everything. And it's like, actually, he had nothing. All he had was money.
Yeah.
You know, all he had was fame. In fact, I feel bad for someone who has fame and is unhappy inside, because now they have all this pressure that prevents them from actually speaking out what's going on.
Yeah.
Like I was recently speaking to like there's some pretty big coaches in the world that everyone knows about, and like they're teachers. And I bumped into one recently, and he told me, he's like, listen, I was like really making it. And honestly, deep down inside, I wasn't happy. And I could never tell people that because I would totally like lose my clients. I had these like world-renowned clients who were seeing me. Deep down inside, something was off.
Yeah.
You know, or like my business failed or my emotions failed. Something failed. Like they couldn't tell it. And I'm like, I felt so bad because I'm like, he's so famous. Like he's working with such famous people who would drop him. So he has all this financial and personal pressure to keep this illusion going.
Right.
That he knows deep inside isn't true. So not only can't he look inside, like he can't be honest about it because he'll potentially lose all of these people. And eventually he did just show up with who he is, and some people dropped him and some people were like, cool, you know? So, but it's interesting. Like, it's actually, I realized that it's a real blessing to be anonymous.
It is.
I think we were all looking for like the biggest curse in the world.
Yeah.
Everyone's like, I want to be rich and famous. And it's like, that sounds like the most horrific thing. It's like, I want people to scrutinize my life and criticize me without any regard or any knowledge of me consistently.
Dude, there's a mental framework, and I don't know if it was a quote or not, and probably is a quote, but it was like, we spend the first 50 years putting a mask on, and then we spend the last 50 years removing it. And if you can just stay with your first mask, which is like pure joy when you're just a kid and you're curious, no judgment, right? You love everything. Everything is anchored to the moment in the present. That's the key. If you can somehow put masks on and take it off all the way to who you are innately, if you can figure that out, that's beautiful. That's living a life with experience and with intention, right? So it's like I'm always like, who do I need to remove? Anytime I say I should do something, I know I'm not doing it from the mask that's behind it.
Because that part just is, and it just
it just
flows.
is. It's just like, I love what I'm experiencing. But if I find myself saying I should do this, I should shoot this next podcast, I need to make this next course, I need to get this new client, I should be running these ads. If I find myself saying should all the time, I have to go back and like reflect. I'm like, who is telling me that? And then once you uncover that, you remove a layer, and then you remove another layer. it's just kind of like the whole crab thing. You're just removing another layer of you.
Mhm.
You know what I
Yeah.
mean?
And then behind it all, like, I mean, it got me thinking about, it was a couple years ago.
Mm-hmm.
I came out of my house and there's a bunch of black widows
Mm-hmm.
that were like started making a whole habitat around the house.
Yeah.
And I was just like, first I was like, oh no, get the broom, you know? And then I'm like, this is kind of interesting. Like, okay, black widows, I wonder what the meaning is or something.
Mm-hmm.
So I started like Googling and researching into black
Curiosity.
widows.
Yeah.
Yeah, really fascinating creatures. I don't know if it's for other spiders too, but from what I understood, black widows take, when they're born, they
Mm-hmm.
take a web, they just shoot it up,
Yeah.
and then they just let the wind take them wherever they land,
Yeah.
and they don't move. They just stay there. They make their nest and they just wait.
Why?
And they just never. I think the males maybe go to like mate, so they meet other ladies across,
Yeah.
you know, whatever they're called, black widow ladies.
Yeah.
So you know, but it's like there's like this like crazy dependence on nature, like total trust. It's like you're not gonna go out and look for prey. It's like, no, I'm just gonna catch things. See you guys
Yeah.
later. Where do you land? Who cares?
Yeah.
And this is maybe more of a philosophical question, but you know, I don't know if you ever watch like Forrest Gump, or like there's so many other movies like that theme where it's
Right.
like we have these like beliefs of, you know, we need to do this, and there's this guy who's just like happy-go-lucky. He's just like just running and going
Yeah.
and doing his thing, and he's just living his life, and he ends up like everything just works out perfectly, you
Mm-hmm.
know. And I wonder if a lot of our maths are actually inhibiting our success in a way of like we have these beliefs of who we should be,
Mm-hmm.
but like there's something to be said around that in a world of, you know, diseases, plagues, death,
Mm-hmm.
you know, many millennium of potential ways that the human species could have died. It
Right.
didn't,
Mm-hmm.
you know, and we're up there with, you know, spiders and you know, I don't know, your cow, and they have some way, they
Crabs.
figured it out. Crabs, yeah, like in all of the stuff going on, they found a way to thrive.
Right.
And humans are a thriving species.
We're
And it's
very
like,
anti-fragile. Yeah.
yeah, so I just wonder, like, I wonder if our success was built on our like might, or
Mm.
maybe there's like we're underestimating our connection with nature
Mm-hmm.
and how every other creature in this planet just basically just does their thing. Like,
Yeah.
don't get me wrong, a tiger still hunts, but he likes to hunt. It's totally
Built
his
to
vibe.
hunt. Yeah.
Yeah, so it's like the shark. He's not like, oh, I got to do another day of
Yeah.
catching fish. I just want to, you know,
Yeah.
like that's what he does. That's what feels right.
Mm-hmm.
And I just wonder if it's like we've underestimated, and why life might be so hard is we've underestimated our connection with nature,
Right.
and nature including ourselves. Like that maybe we know the answers. We know what we need to do. We know where we need to be.
Mm-hmm.
And we just keep putting on these masks and shoulds,
Yeah.
as opposed to coming to like what is.
Exactly.
And maybe from there, we might have all the wisdom and answers, intuition and knowledge. And maybe things will just start working. I don't know. Like I'm just, it's something to think about. And it's
Yeah.
something that most of us never try. Like we try everything. I'm like, I tried this guy, that coach, this thing.
Yeah.
Like how many people decide just like, I'm just going to let it go and just be open, and then
Yeah.
be, you know, open to synchronicity, open to things just working. Maybe that's
Right.
a possibility, just like it is for every other creature on the whole planet.
Mm-hmm.
Like, but
This-
maybe it's also applies to the human creature, possibly.
Yeah.
You know,
I guess how would you balance a creature that is always hunting, like they're wired to hunt,
Yeah.
right? They're wired to go, and another creature that's more like a black widow, that's attracting
Yeah.
everything to them, right?
Yeah.
So how do you balance that for a client? Like, how do you know they're going too far into the hunting side, and then there's another end
Yeah.
where you're like, dude, you're just not doing anything. Nothing's gonna happen for you.
Yeah. And I think this is an area of real personal accountability.
Yeah.
Of really getting to, like, the lion is not like hunting time.
Yeah.
You know, and the lion sleeps like 20 hours a day. It's like crazy amount of sleep. So
Yeah,
like we
yeah.
always use like he's the hunter. He's the
Uh-huh.
napper. Like
Mhm.
he's literally napping all day. But my point is anyways, I think he's just following what feels right for him.
Mhm.
And I think everyone has a different rhythm of what is right for them. I think part of the biggest issue is that people don't know what's right for them because they've worn so many masks. They don't know who they are anymore.
Exactly.
You know? I remember meeting someone, actually, this is a personal story about myself, where I met this lady and we had this like, seemed like this lovely connection. I was like, wow, my God. Like,
Yeah.
she likes meditating 4 in the morning with me.
Yeah.
Oh my God, we're like matches from heaven, you know?
Right.
And what happened was she found someone who really could just see her for who she is. So she felt really loved.
Mm-hmm.
But for her, she was someone who was constantly putting a mask her whole life.
Mm.
So she was trying to don the right mask on for me. At
Yeah.
the same time, she was trying to love me.
Yeah.
So it was like this dichotomy of like
Yeah.
who she really is versus I really want to be with this guy for real.
Right.
So, and it was like interesting because that one day she just snapped and changed back. And I was like, what happened?
Yeah.
And I realized, you know, she was really trying to connect, but she had no clue who she was to connect with.
Mm-hmm.
You know, and it was a powerful lesson of like, I mean, gratitude to I'm like, I'm great. I can just be myself. I don't
Right.
have that pressure so much.
Mm-hmm.
But I mean, it's a really tough life for that lady, but also for other people who, you know, I think honestly, most of civilization, I think I'm an anomaly in this way, but most people their whole lives are trying to build success. And for me, I think I may have said the line to you before,
Yeah.
like, how many spoons do I need to eat?
Yeah.
Like, I don't know, like if I have enough to pay the bills, like, I don't know, I may just pause my clients until
Yeah.
I need to.
Which was so peaceful for me,
Yeah.
by the way, when you said that, like, how many do I really need?
Yeah.
I just that revelation and then just asking. That was a mask removal for me.
Mm.
When you say things like that and you're in the presence of someone that meditates a significant amount of times for hours. You do 24-hour ones where I'm like, it just blows my mind. Imagine the amount of neurons you're destroying to make room for new of what really, really, truly matters.
Mm.
So one thing, I mean, like the mask, like where do you know the fine line between the widow to someone that haunts all the time? You'll know when you're experiencing those two magical emotions, anxiety and depression, and listening and leaning in. You're like, if I'm too anxious, I need to pull back and become more like a widow, right? If I feel more in the widow depression state, I need to go out there and start hunting more, right? So there was another quote. It was like, if you're depressed, you need to go learn, but if you are anxious, you need to like remove the amount of learning. You need to like relax.
Yeah. And this is where it gets really complex because everyone's system is different. Someone may be depressed and they need to just take a rest.
Yeah.
And relax and then recuperate. And for someone else, they need to get off their butt and go.
Right.
You know, so that's where it gets complex and where I think it's even better than viewing like depression and anxiety. Let's view it as in like, get to know yourself, get to know your body, like really explore your body as your outside system. You're just like, all right, I'm babysitting this body this year.
Yeah.
You know, and you're like, okay, let's watch him. Like when he does this, he feels this happened. Okay, now this is like a communication signal machine. And maybe we don't need to wait till we're getting to the ends of our wits where we're super anxious or depressed. Maybe we can start honing in like more proactively around like what brings us joy. What excites us, what lifts our hearts, what tells inside I get this feeling that goes, yes, there's something in my body telling me. So like we've really lost connection to this internal compass, so much so that we need the trigger, the warning, don't go there, signals of our body. So like I think the starting step is when we're getting anxious or depressed, we know we've already have lost our path.
Yeah.
So it's not like you sin and you know, it's nothing wrong, whatever, like that happens.
Yeah.
So, and that's part of the process. When you push yourself, you sometimes disconnect. So we need to come back to like clarity of, you know, get to know what it feels like when you do something that feels right for you. So you look back at your life, the things that like, that not give you joy as in like, I succeeded, I'm the best, or look how good I did. But like when you go to sleep at night, or if you died and that thing happened, that was like, that was good.
Yeah.
So like whatever that is, that's like, you know what? Like for me, I was actually meditating this morning and I was lying down and there's a moment I just realized like I'm in this body lying on this cushion.
Yeah.
And you know, where are we? Las Vegas.
Yeah.
Las Vegas, Nevada, in America,
Yeah.
in the Pacific Ocean, in the world, like the Earth, rotating around a bunch of planets in a solar system that's like spinning around some other systems, but spinning around other systems, spin around other universes. And it's like, just like, I'm like a speck of a speck of a speck of a speck. And I'm like, I'm going to do a great job today.
Yeah.
And it's like seeing an ant and you're like, oh, you fool. You're just
Yeah,
you're just going up and down,
Yeah.
eating sugar and bringing it in there. Like, it doesn't really matter,
Yeah.
you know? So I think, okay, it doesn't matter. So in
Mhm.
this little small speck of time that I exist in,
Mhm.
like, what would be worthwhile? And I'm like, honestly, this moment of pondering is
Just
worth it all.
questioning. It's the
Like,
best
think
part.
about this
The
moment
curious,
of
yeah.
where I get to realize the difference between me and the ant is I get to go, oh my God,
Mhm.
wow, I'm here.
This world is bigger. Yeah.
It's huge.
So we're
And
getting,
then there's,
yeah.
this thing of like, so I think it's like, that's a moment of where I pause, I hibernate, and I
Mhm.
go to this moment of like, what's a life we're living in this
Yeah.
giant context? I mean, probably one of awe for me.
Mhm.
One of like, wow. Now, if I approach business from that standpoint, I'd make very different decisions. You know,
It just becomes more joyful thing. Just
joyful and
going,
also like
yeah.
sometimes I may not make a decision from a fear-based place. I may make a decision because of like, or
Yeah.
even the way I do sales or talking to someone about like, hey, you should join my blah 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 blah. I'll be like, oh my God, life is the most insane thing. I'd love to share that with you.
Yeah.
And they're just like, wow, really? Yeah.
Yeah.
You know, so it's a
It's
totally,
different.
yeah.
Different
So
energy.
I think it's a completely different world, and then maybe part of what's going on is that we're so disconnected that we have to hustle and push and push and push because it's like we're not plugged in. It's
Mhm.
like we're like a car and the engine's not on, and we're like, why is it so hard? Turn the damn thing on.
Yeah.
You know, so like we're so connected to our disconnected to our body that we don't have any of those signals that make us go, wow, oh, that's so nice. Or even like, woohoo, that was fun. You know?
Yeah.
Yes, it's a challenge. And I was a blast. You
That's
know,
so good.
so does that make sense? Like
It
I
is,
feel
yeah.
like because
So
if we go the anxious depressive route, we're
this is a signal.
reactive. We're looking for the symptom of when we've already gone off. It's like, how do you know you're full? Oh, your stomach is in pain.
Mhm.
Maybe you shouldn't have waited till your stomach was in pain.
Yeah.
Like, why do
It's
we
easier to
wait?
read
Like,
that.
yeah, like it's like we're not a plant. So
Mhm.
we have to, when we see the plant droop, we go, oh, we need to put water in it. But like, and maybe that's good for plants. But for humans, like we don't need to wait till we're in bad shape. We don't have to go like, oh, I have knee pain. We should be more proactive. Like the fact that
100%.
we need
Yeah.
therapies and we need coaches is already a dysfunction.
Yeah.
If you think about it, we should be looking and going, what do I need? Well, how are my organs doing? How's my body doing? We're so disconnected. We don't understand how to self-regulate. We don't know how to calm ourselves down.
Mhm.
So we've gone so off.
Yeah.
So just like someone comes with knee pain, you go, great, but what's the body telling us? And you're
Mhm.
doing that because he can't do it or she can't do it themselves.
This is, yeah. So
Yeah.
this is, now we're getting to the pragmatic stuff,
Yeah.
guys. So the first step to this is accepting that it's just a function and it's neutral. It's just, it is what it is.
It is.
So there's no need to double whammy it. Now we get into the second state of this, which is like the pragmatic side. Like, how do we holistically take care of ourselves every single day? And we've touched up on two major ones. One was reflection, and another one was breathwork and meditation.
Mhm.
Right? Just getting outside of yourself and becoming the observer is so huge.
Mhm.
One thing that I've noticed, and I only noticed this, I had my depressive bouts in Q4, was because I started journaling.
Mhm.
You know, so I started looking back and I was like, oh, this Black Widow is really interesting. During this time of the year, this Black Widow gets depressive, right? And this is what this person does. And you start getting this sense of peace that this is part of the process.
Mhm.
Instead of breaking it down, you try to improve the process. You're like, okay, so during this time, this is when we get back into more of our spiritual route. This is when we cool down and we don't have to hustle as much because everyone else is doing the same thing, right? So now it's like, it's more healing. It's more rooting, like what you said, which is huge. So
Mhm.
one pragmatic way that's helped at least me, I don't know if you do this with your clients, is just having a daily form of reflection
Mhm.
of what's going on. How are you experiencing life? What was
Mhm.
joyful today? What wasn't joyful today?
Mhm.
Like, what are your thoughts around that? The daily
Yeah.
reflection.
Well, the number one reason why I like it is because you allow people to start taking like charge of their life.
Yeah.
So you put them in the driver's seat. And that's the biggest thing missing in most people's lives. So they're like, what should I do? What should I do? You know, instead of going like, well, let's start putting you in that seat. Because you're going to have the best knowledge if you give yourself the patience and experience to assess. So I like the idea of journaling because then you get to look at it and go,
It's tangible now.
Yeah. And also you're awake.
Yeah.
You're alive. You're looking. Your system is on. You know, and someone said something like 90% of people are. I don't know if you know. Are you a gamer at all? Or you know?
Yeah. Oh yeah.
What's it called? NPC or
Yeah.
NCP?
Most people are like that right
NPC,
now.
is that what it is?
Yeah. NPCs are
non-player computer. I don't know,
whatever. But they're not.
Yeah, basically, it's just like most people are NPCs.
Yeah.
So a journaling, meditation, it's the same concept. It's basically putting someone in a position where they get to look from an outside perspective and just watch.
Yeah.
Interesting. Like, what is this guy? What is this mechanics? And like most things are actually really obvious. That's what I come to realize. And like really good coaches just tell you, or like really good advice. I heard this line, really good advice is things you know but don't want to hear.
Yeah.
You know? And it's like, cause things like even really good advice, like most things we already know.
Yes.
It's just that we don't take the time to listen. We don't take the time to integrate. And journaling is an opportunity for that. I would say, like, just jumping on that, like, we spoke about understanding we're cyclical creatures and things like circadian rhythm and how often there's daylight could affect a whole bunch of hormones in our body that affect us to the point of our emotions and our moods, say cases of, manic depressive disorders. So then that's like just research based. So we should just take stock that we are impacted by our planetary systems around us and how we feel. I think that's a good factor. I think another one could also just be, are you driving or someone else? Or some branding you were told as a kid or from your mom or dad or a teacher or social media that you should be da-da-da. And then like you never looked inside and how this machine should operate. So you're a tiger trying to be a giraffe. Your life's horrible. You're trying to like pick leaves off a tree and you're like, this is impossible. You're like on the tree trying to catch leaves. It's just like you're totally living out of your zone, or you're a bird trying to be a rhinoceros and you're like, oh my God, I can never make it through this, I don't know, bush.
Yeah.
And it's like, you just hop over your bird, so there's something about like, we're totally out of alignment.
Running NPCs.
And that's part of the problem is like, we're so asleep. So we have to find some way. I find some of the ways is, and this leans into the next thing I'll talk about, which is energy. Some of them is just like a lack. We're just not there for the game. And part of that is actually energy. So I would say, if I had to sum up depression in 2 words, I would say it's one of the following. It's either disconnect or lack of energy. That's it. Those are the only 2 things that sum up all of depression.
Right.
Because if you're feeling low, well, you're not connected enough to either know where you need to head, what you need to do, that you need to take a break. You're not connected to your true self. You're disconnected spiritually. You don't have a part of you that feels bigger than self. You don't have community. You're isolated. All of those things are disconnected from your body. There's tremendous research on interoceptive accuracy, your body's awareness of how you're feeling, your mind's awareness of your body. Now, research shows the lower your awareness is of your body, the higher your depression is, higher your anxiety is, and the worse you think of your body. Like that one thing, connection to your body.
This is so good.
So I would say like that all is this connection. And then there's energy, which is a whole other component. Like, get out, move. And I'm going on a rant here, but if you had to listen to 1 minute, that would be it. Like of this whole podcast. There's disconnection. So are you not connected to yourself? Not connected to, call it a spiritual path, meaning, purpose, drive, something that's beyond self, community, giving, connection, relationships, isolation, like all of those things, the body. And then there's like energy. Are you getting enough sleep? Are you drinking enough food? Are you drinking enough food?
You can drink food.
Yeah, now you can.
You break your jaw.
Yeah. But are you having enough nutrients in your body? Are you getting enough sunlight? Are you walking outside every day and placing your feet on the ground, allowing the negative ions to leave your body? So it's like, are you taking care of basic energy that your body needs?
If you hired someone to build your house, and you hired an architect, and you're like, hey, dude, I want to build this house. He needs to have like 3 rooms. He needs to have this balcony. He needs to have these color roofs. And this architect goes up and says, sure, yeah, dude. He was like, cool, man, show me the plan so I can approve it. And then the architect's like, nah, dude, I got it in my head. I'd be like, no, I'm not hiring you. Show me the plans. Most people build their life, which is by far, I think, one of the biggest things in terms of like building a house, a project, an architect thing. Most people are building it just like I got it in my head. They're never even writing it down, reflecting on what it's supposed to look like. And they wonder why that house is falling apart every single time. Right? They didn't put the foundations in. They didn't put the pipes in. There's no electricity. There's no plumbing. You built 3 rooms and you really only wanted 2. And that's the disconnect.
Well, I would say, like, let's say in the house model. So where is that guy getting the idea to build this 3-bedroom house, let's say? Who told him that?
It could be that too. Like,
It could just be like someone, his neighbor told him, or he saw a magazine. He's like, this is a great house.
Yeah, it could be a
So
mess.
he didn't take the time to get to know like his system. He didn't take the time to get to know this body. Where's it headed? You know, I think it's something really cool. Like, let's say a teacher, right? Or a coach is the same thing, right? You look at someone and you see the trajectory. Like, I can see this guy going da 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 da.
Yeah.
Or I can see him going da 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 da. Like, you see like possible trajectories, possible potential for this person. And like a teacher is a great example. Like, they're a little kid and you're like, I can see this guy in 10 years from now. I can see who he can be. So it's like, we don't take the time to look at ourselves and go like, where's this guy headed? Like, assess and evaluate this person. Like, really, not, you know, assuming we can get out of our mentality of like, you're horrible, da 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 da, you can just start seeing things objectively.
Yeah.
You go, well, like, where's this guy headed? So then you can start creating your own kind of house of what works, you know, you can start becoming the architect of your life. But if we don't take the time to get to know the materials you have, the resources, the landscape, you know, all of these things, so you can build a house. So you're like, I saw in a magazine a really cool house. Everyone has these houses. Let's do it.
Yeah.
And it's like, yeah, but you're like, those are great houses, but you know, you're in, I don't know, Dallas, Texas, and the ground's too dry. You can't build a 3-story house. It doesn't work there. So you're building a house. You're wondering why it keeps collapsing. So then you're depressed. And it's like, because you never took the time to look at your landscape, look at this, you know, the housing and the materials you have. You're like, based on these materials, this is what I could build here.
Exactly.
So yeah.
You
So
build
there's
an
something
audience.
about taking stock, and we don't take the time for that. And I think we're so petrified of not being successful or whatever. Everyone has a house already.
Yeah.
It's like, yeah, the guy's been here for 70 years. He has a house because he spent time and did it. So take your time, do it. This is your life. This is the process, and that's okay. We didn't come here to know everything. I think we came here to experience.
Experiment. Yeah.
Yeah.
One thing that I want to do more this year is just experiment. I think I lived the first 10 years doing the work really hard hustle.
Yeah.
And I forgot the experimentation side. Just experiment more, experience more. But don't just experiment to experiment, but write it down and actually reflect, become like a scientist again. Like, when I did this, how did I feel? What were the outcomes? Cool. Like, should I do more of that? That sounds pretty fun. Or was it something that I maybe shouldn't do? Am I getting pushed to a person that's wearing another mask? Just experiment more. I think that's what makes this thing so amazing. One of the saddest things is when you just start building something to its most epic level and then you dislike the whole thing. That is a pathway for misery for me. So this next year is, bam, that's why I wanted it. That's why we never called it the Weight Loss Coaching Podcast. I don't want to just talk about weight loss. I want to talk about this.
Yeah.
This is the fun stuff. This is the real stuff. This is the voodoo stuff that we're not supposed to talk about. But to be honest, this is what I feel like has helped me in my health, in my life.
Yeah.
Understanding these concepts that were once in my household was like, no, we don't talk about health. We don't talk about emotions. You're depressed now. We don't even talk. No crying allowed. No sad faces allowed. Which created a lot of damage for me in my early 20s for sure. I want to touch up on another pragmatic thing, and I think we can talk about so many tools here. Let's talk about breath work and how can that be a major tool on a daily basis that can really change the experience for you when you're going through a depressive bout.
Yeah.
Right?
And there's something about depression that about breath work that I love. And that's it's like multifaceted. So I spoke about like the energy component. So breath work allows you to increase your energy load. So like we just did a practice right before this thing, and I'm like, don't drink your coffee yet.
Which is
Yeah.
unreal, by the
Yeah,
way. Can
and
you explain what we just did on that one real quick?
yeah, don't try this at home. Like get a professional, because you
Yeah.
don't want to hurt yourself. But simply what we did, we just did 3 minutes of breathing, but no exhales.
Yeah.
Just inhaling for
Nuts.
3 minutes straight. And I would warn you, don't do it with food, and don't do it at all unless you speak to someone, just because I don't want to take responsibility for you. But then we had our hands in a certain posture and our mouth in a certain way,
Mhm.
and a couple of things that we did to keep the energy good. And we basically just inhaled for 3 minutes. So I mean, everyone's body is different. For me, I got like sweaty. I was cold before I got hot.
Yeah.
I got a lot of like flashes to
I
my
got
body.
awake. I got awake doing
Get
it.
awake, yeah. And
Yeah.
people get high or tipsy or whatever.
Mhm.
You're oxidizing your body, but also because you're not exhaling, your body just forced to use that oxygen,
Mhm.
and there's no carbon dioxide leaving. So your
Yeah.
body's like really, really using the oxygen a lot more. It's not letting it
Yeah.
leave.
Mhm.
So that's an example of like super energize you in 3 minutes. So the breathing practice for like when I think of depression for breathing, like there's two practices that come to my mind. There's a certain pranayama
Yeah.
breathing practice I use with almost all my clients who struggle with depression, and it's meaning assuming it's energy based. Meaning if
Yes.
they're misaligned, there's other stuff to do. You actually need to slow them down.
Mhm.
But if they're struggling from an energy place, that they actually need to get up and go.
Yeah,
So
they're sitting in the couch too
yeah,
much.
so
Too
I
long.
do a breath work. Actually, also I've done that one with you also. O mouth
Oh
with
yeah.
like kind of like a jumping jack
With
thing
the
with
hands, with the hand placement too.
yeah.
Yes.
So it's I would say not so much. I don't know if I can even show you on the cam.
You can kind of
Yeah,
see it. Yeah.
basically, you have an O mouth, and there's a couple of things to do. So I would say again, reach out to me or find a yoga teacher to teach this to you. But it's called a pranayama to strengthen your aura. So
Mhm.
you're inhaling and exhaling.
Yeah.
So it's very invigorating, energizing. So
It's
practices like those are like I find for people who are depressed, and it's from an energy-based standpoint.
Mhm.
Just that alone, in 3 minutes, they're a different human. At the end of it, they're just like, okay. And I'm like, okay. I mean, like a couple
Yeah.
seconds ago, you were like,
You feel, but
so
now you
they're
feel good and normal.
yeah,
Or
they feel
neutral.
like almost like they're off their drugs.
Mhm.
In fact, some of my clients, I don't even have a conversation with them until I do breath work. They're like, I'm like, no, we're not talking yet.
I want to talk to the neutral
Yeah,
person,
I
not the
want to talk
negative one.
to someone who actually has an opinion,
Yeah.
not the drunk
Droopy
the
one.
drunk monkey here who's just like everything is the worst.
Yeah.
So I'm like, just do the breathing technique, then tell me what you think. And then they're
Oh,
like,
so
okay, well I
good.
got to do this. This is kind of hard. I'm like, okay, cool. Like
Mhm.
we can have a conversation now. So that's why I love breathing, because you
Yeah.
get to actually just directly impact the energy in a really quick way, no matter where you are. You're in your high-rise apartment, you're in Brooklyn, and there's no grass, and it's too cold to go outside. You
Mhm.
can still do a breathing practice that will energize your body. So I love that concept. And then there's also certain movements called in yogic tradition called kriyas. So there's a kriya called kriya for depression, which is
Mhm.
also one I use a lot for people with depression.
Mhm.
And it's a set of movements. Again, you have to find the yogic master or someone to teach it to you, but specific movements to alleviate and shift the mind. So
Yes.
that's a great one where you're energizing the body, you're working on your core muscles and energy. There's that's one aspect of the breathing.
Mhm.
Another aspect of breathing and meditating is that it forces your mind to change. So our identity around who we are and our beliefs
Yeah.
are just neural networks that are firing. There's no
Yes.
difference between California and New York aside for a flight. If you spent your whole life in New York, if you take a flight to California, you're now in California. So it's just a question of whether you go, I'm going to go back to New York. You can go back to New York, but California and New York are objectively both there.
Right.
And happiness and sadness are just neural networks.
Mhm.
So there's nothing personal. Your body doesn't go like, oh no, the sadness feeling is coming. It's just the chemical reactions,
Mhm.
and both are in your body. So your body produces all of them. So it's nothing personal. They just send out whatever they're going to send out.
Yes.
So you have to take responsibility to shift your energy by changing your neural networks.
Right.
So I love breathing practices because it actually allows you to, and I use Kundalini yoga. It's a more powerful form of yoga, but I love that one because it directly impacts my capacity to experience who I am.
Is that one have more like hand movements and postures?
Yeah, I would say a lot more breathing. Most practices are like a little
versions.
slower, so it's a
Yeah.
little more tempo based.
Mhm.
And when you're inhaling and exhaling at certain rhythms, it
Yeah.
activates theta states, kind of what DMT or ayahuasca or what a lot of people who are now getting into the medicine world. But it activates new states in your mind,
Mhm.
which activates completely new ways of thinking. The only difference is that it's digestible. You're not getting like, oh, I had this experience with the shaman, and then you come back and you can't like function and do a job anymore because we're all one. And they're like, great, well, you got a ticket because you just sped, and you can't pay it because you're all one and you can't go to work anymore. So like it allows you to integrate it better, that you have these micro theta states, just enough to change a little perspective at a time. So it's gradual, it's integratable. So that's part of it. So you can change who I am. I mean, yeah, I think every religion, belief, philosopher all agrees. At the end of the day, we are all, connected, interwoven, interdependent with the entire universe. Nothing on this planet exists in a vacuum. Everything exists as one. So we can't deny we're really one system. So why should you ever be depressed? We're all just infinity and divinity, and we're just getting to experience ourselves. And the reality is, because we don't live that way, we don't see our life that way.
Yeah.
So these practices allow us to get little glimpses of who we really are, which is where we are connected to this infinite reality. So it's something to talk about, but the most important part is to experience who we are. And that's what these practices do. They allow us to experience ourselves in a way that's, instead of like talking about being successful, it's feeling success. Instead of talking about someone, when you get a job, kid, you're going to da-da-da-da, first getting a job and feeling that difficulty and the success and how that felt like for you. So it's the experience that changes you. So experiencing some level of connection with the universe or God or everything is also life-changing in that area, because you get to know who you are.
Yeah.
Again.
You touched up on a lot of things there.
So
I want to touch on one thing, because I can share an experience, and it's why I work out every single day. One thing that you said was, I don't even talk to my clients until we do a practice with breath work. One thing my wife did and noticed was she doesn't talk to me until I work out. Right? Because I'm this negative person when I don't work out. She's like, did you work out yet? And I was like, no, not yet. Go work out. And I was like, oh, that's so true. One revelation that I had from that concept is my emotions a lot of time is stored inside my body. And the way I act, feel, and magnetize and create energy is directly how my body is moving. So just like you said with the energy state, especially with people that are not moving enough. If they're not moving enough, I just tell them like, dude, if you don't want to feel depressed, just go for a run, go for a walk, like get your heart rate going. And that's that might be your unlock to.
It could be that simple.
It could be that simple, right?
Yeah.
So I like how you touched up on the energy state, because it might not just be one of those things.
Yeah, you can go to 1,000 therapists trying to. I worked with a client who's like, I think it's because I have these thoughts, da da da, and I'm like, when was the last time you went for a walk?
Yeah,
months. Then I'm like, I don't understand you. Like, which creature in the planet gets to exist and not move at all?
Yeah.
Like, I don't get it. Like, your body is completely wired. You walk on these legs. Your completely whole system is governed by movement.
Yes.
And you're like just owning that reality and expecting you to be happy.
This is what breaks my heart every single time, where I see patients that are 70, 80 pounds overweight. They go to a doctor and they're like, I think I need a pill for this. I'm really depressed. They're 70 pounds overweight. I was like, dude, you don't need a pill. Just, you need to work out, right? You need to move more, right? Like we try to chase, we almost want to find that there is something wrong with us so we could take the easy way out and then take a pill for it.
Yeah. And even there, that person, 70 pounds overweight, well, who are they? Do they get to know themselves? Are they moving enough? And then maybe it's fine that they have overweight and they're still healthy.
Right.
I don't know. Like you check it out. Like, and even like, why do I need to be a certain weight?
Right.
Like a lot of these things are just like, well, everyone else has that weight. And I'm like, okay, let's ask you, are you happy? Do you feel like you can move? Do you feel free in your body? That's a better question than looking at a scale and looking at a number.
Exactly.
It's like, I know plenty of people who are more overweight, who are more active, more happy, more vital than people who are in great shape.
Right.
So it's just, so it's really these things are just symptoms.
Right.
And they may not lead anywhere. Like, oh my God, he's overweight. Is he happy? Is he moving?
Yeah.
Does he feel like, or that person feel like they're expanding in their life? They feel fulfilled?
Yeah.
I mean, if the answer is yes to those things, they're ahead of most people, and it may or may not be an impactor.
Yeah.
we live in a world where it's very weight conscious, but I think that also is part of it. We're like, everyone's trying to look a certain way instead of
Right.
be who they are,
Right.
and whoever they are, figure it out, whatever. Like, either way, it's fine. Just
Yes.
figure it out.
Yeah, you're right. And holistically, you want to look at it as a whole. What I'm really want to discuss on that is just like that is their quickest route to feel good.
Yeah, just
Right? You
hide,
should
run
look
away.
at
Just
it.
let me. Yeah.
Yeah, and you know, I'm not so fixated on how it looks. But if a person's coming in for me and they're feeling a particular energy, I'm not telling them to lose weight to look a particular way. I'm
Yeah.
telling them, hey, dude, actually, you probably might feel better if you just go out for a run. And if the weight
Right.
sheds off,
Cool.
which probably
Yeah.
will, cool.
And
Right?
that person will likely continue with the runs if they did it because it felt good.
100%.
But if they did it
Yeah.
just to shed the pounds, I promise you it'll come back.
And that's
Because the whole motivation was
Yeah.
So now that they got past the off factor and now they lost the 5 pounds, then they go back to their same old self, which is lack of accountability or whatever it was. So then
100%.
like, oh my God, I can't believe the same thing occurs. Wow. It's like, yeah, because the whole reality was that you couldn't move for whatever reason.
Mm-hmm.
And now you move because you were afraid of how you looked.
Yes.
Okay, now you're not afraid anymore. So then you won't move. It's math,
Mm-hmm.
So
And this is the way that I coach my clients. I don't coach them based on what the results are. I base it on how they would feel. A client came up to me and was like, hey, dude, like, I just don't want to do these runs that you told me about, but I would rather work out with you again. He was like, okay, cool. Like, which one is going to be 10% more joyful? I was like, oh, it'd be 100 times more joyful if I did another session.
Yeah.
He was like, let's bypass the run, right? And let's do that. And then if your weight loss happens from that, oh gosh, that's a miracle.
Totally.
You're losing weight and you're joyful.
Yeah.
Oh my gosh, let's do that.
Well, it's actually funny. This is an area where we're both aligned, but in totally different arenas. In the mental health arena,
Yeah.
I literally just find what's fun, and I do that.
It's
because
powerful.
I just people are like, we have to get rid of symptom reduction. I promise you, it'll never work. I promise you. You know why? Because the problem is that the alternative lifestyle you want them to live, they haven't found a way that's joyful or enjoyable. So they're gonna go back to the symptom way.
100%.
That's why they're doing the symptom way, because they think it offers more benefits.
Yes.
Even though they have symptoms, it's that much more beneficial.
Yes.
So like, I'm struggling with anxiety. Well, it sounds like some part of you believes if you had anxiety, you would be better off. So we have to create a better system than what you have. So like with my clients, I'm almost like, forget about why you came here. Let me just help you be happy. And they're like, well, that's a good goal also. Sure.
Yeah.
And then, I work on their symptoms, but what happens is they'll always go back to the problem if they didn't just found a way to be proactive. Like most of the people who I see and they come back, it's just because they like got to their like what should be good, as opposed to going to like,
they chased the
be happy.
experience.
Yeah. Chase. But I think if they chased kind of how they feel, they would actually be more successful. Like,
yeah, it's so
like
great.
just like when I work with, there's also like all these like severe cases in the mental health field. A lot of them, like borderline is one of those clients. Like therapists are terrified of dealing with borderline clients. Now, on a personal level, like, I don't know. For me, most of therapy has gotten pretty boring.
What do you mean by borderline?
Borderline. I'll explain about it.
What's borderline?
Simply, borderline personality disorder are like suicidal, suggestive. Okay. So they're gestures. So they're always like, I'm thinking of killing myself. I'm cutting myself. The therapists are terrified because they have to do, all this reporting and documentation and all this liability on them. And it's up there with eating disorders. Therapists are terrified of people who have these disorders. They're like, oh no, I can't deal with those. And everyone has, every therapist between therapists, there's some clients they're terrified of. And part of it is the liability. They don't know how to treat it, or,
And then like the PTSD, like they somewhat feel responsible that they weren't able to help.
Yeah.
And they carry that burden that it was their fault or something crazy.
Yeah, stuff like that too.
Yeah.
I think the biggest part for most therapists is, I don't know if it's the PTSD. I think for a lot of them is the reminder of inadequacy. That they just feel like, I'm the therapist and everything. And you're like, well, you can't help me and I'm paying you.
Yeah.
So no therapist wants to acknowledge that they're inadequate, and you pay them for it. So, but borderline clients are an example of where they're so, they come in with suicidal gestures, saying they want to kill themselves, they're cutting themselves, all of the, trigger warning things that
Exactly. Yep.
you don't want to hear. And a lot of it is my experience. I love borderline clients. They're literally just have not found a better alternative identity to listen to aside for their illness identity. So I just help them find a better identity. And I do that with like breath work and movements and things that totally radically shift their perspective on who they are. And I don't fight them on it. Yeah, it sounds hard. Yeah, let's breathe. Let's do this thing. And then they shift.
I remember you told me something because I told you how breath, and this will relate to what you're saying. I was doing these like 5-minute breath works and I was like, man, it's just so impactful. And then what you said to me was like, dude, it's impactful because you were at such a state of where you needed it. And it worked really well because you needed it at that moment. Like you stressed your body so much that even just a little dosage of breath work had significant impacts. And I don't know if you're going to this, but because of these people going in that are so borderline, like they're right there, that even just a little breath work possibly can have this massive impact because it probably non-existent.
Well, it's actually, we're jumping into so many of the topics here, but with borderline, the number one expression I see is confusion and bewilderment.
Yeah.
Like when I do a gong bath or some experience that takes them to another
Blown
state.
away.
Yeah, they get up and like they have no thoughts at that moment. Their mind is completely clear.
Yeah.
And there's someone who's been adamant that they're ill and they'll never get better. And they look at me and they're just like, I can see there's zero thoughts going on.
Yeah.
Except for like, what the hell is going on?
What just happened?
Yeah, I don't know. I just felt really good, which is not possible. And it was 5 minutes ago. And so they're just confused. They're just like, I mean, this feels nice.
And that's why you're not scared of it, because you're like, oh, a small dosage is going to have massive impact.
They've never experienced happiness or joy, bliss. And
Peace,
that's where I was going about experience, right? About it's ultimately people have not experienced a more happy way. And that's part of the problem is we keep trying to help people. People deep down inside know that they want to be more and experience more. Now, the irony is they already are more and they already can experience everything. Now, we are looking outside of ourselves to experience the reality that's already present. It's like, I think it was Osho. You ever heard of Osho? He's a famous yogi and revolutionary in a lot of different ways in America and India. And one of the things he says, it's a fish in the sea never gets thirsty, or some line like that.
Okay.
And it's like we're completely surrounded with the most like insane reality, and we're totally oblivious to it. So anyways, my point is that we've gotten so disconnected that we need so much help to realign. And a lot of it just comes down to we don't even know what it feels like to be happy. We don't even know what it feels like to be authentic. We've worn so many masks. We don't know where to start. And that's why these like depressive times could literally be your body going like, stop it. I want to figure out reset.
Yeah.
I need to look at me. I'm here. So they shut everything down so you can look inside and get clarity of what's going on. So it's like, it could be a tremendous blessing of your body like rioting against you, kicking and screaming because you're not getting the message.
Yes.
And you keep trying to like look at your Vogue magazine and think about who you should be instead of looking at yourself and looking at the tools you have and who you are. And I mean, if the spider can make it and your ancestors have made it this far, you probably can make it. It'll probably be okay. Like chances are, like from a statistical standpoint, it's like 99.99 success. So it's like, you'll probably be fine. It's really a question of getting to look at yourself, get to know yourself, and take the time. Like it obviously, like you only have your machine to work with. So
100%.
Yeah.
This sounds so grandiose and like super philosophical. I'm not even at that level yet. But if I can just sum up life, at least from how old that I've been, and I'm noticing this, life is really just trying to experience a set of emotions. Like that's it. And we think that if I get this body, I get this house, that I'll get that experience when I get that. But what you're saying with this fish thing, with the water thing, the fish is trying to get water, but then it already has infinite accessibility of water because it lives in the water.
Yeah.
We have access to experience that already, which is joy and happiness. And ironically, the path to joy and happiness can often lead to that. Yet we think we have to go through massive struggle,
Mhm.
struggle, and then we'll get that body or we'll
Yeah.
get that financial success,
And we
right?
actually may not even get that financial success. You
Yeah,
might just get happiness.
yeah.
And I mean, that's not bad. That's
And
pretty
that's not
good.
bad at all
Yeah.
either. Yeah.
It's like, because you got what it was. Like, you may
Hmm.
have not gotten that big house, but you got the feeling of the big house, which was joy
Yeah.
or success or whatever it is.
And
So
yeah,
there's
and I
something,
agree
yeah.
with that. I've set some like physical goals and physical barriers, and I never attended it. And I was like, that actually was cool. Like there was a workout
Yeah.
primary. It was 22 miles, 22 burpees, and I was like, I'm gonna finish that, and I did it, and I still experienced joy from it. And I
Yeah.
was like,
It was a
huh,
journey.
yeah, that was fun,
Yeah.
right?
And I think that's when you said about life is about experiencing a set of emotions, where I actually think that's only one aspect of life.
Oh
I
wow,
think
okay,
life is unlimited, and it
mm-hmm.
has to be because we're living in infinity.
Yeah,
So the blessing of life is that we get to experience unlimited possibilities. It's
yeah.
actually too much for us to comprehend.
In
Like it's
eight,
our
in
mind can't
yeah,
comprehend this gift of life.
in
Still
80
recording.
years, right? Yeah, we're still recording.
Yeah,
That's good.
our mind can't comprehend this gift of life. We're just like we don't understand like that you're literally like alive. You're physically able to experience alive completely. Like I know for me in like in the yoga community, people are all about enlightenment.
Mm-hmm.
And I realized like, do you realize what we are?
Mm-hmm.
We're millions of molecular structure that have
Mm-hmm.
gotten together and decided to assume consciousness. It's off the freaking charts. This is enlightenment.
Yeah.
The fact that you and I, there's no difference in you and I. It's just a bunch of DNA and molecular sequences
Wow.
that are
Yeah.
going on. So I actually don't exist. You don't exist. Life doesn't exist. Hot or cold doesn't exist. Nothing exists. It's just a bunch of
This
molecular
is
structure.
enlightenment. Yeah.
And the ability that I can experience all these cells working together and I can pick up a cup of coffee, that's insane.
Yeah.
Like the
It's a
fact
miracle.
that, yeah, it's a miracle. It's insane. The fact that
Mhm.
you can experience love and joy and laugh and pain, it's
Yeah.
amazing. It's the coolest thing in the world. And if you had like, if you were, I don't know, if you had to just be a flower for one day,
Mhm.
and then like, I don't know, God came to and said, hey, I'm gonna give you this experience of life as a
Yeah.
human being.
You
And
can
one
move
day you're
around.
gonna like trip and fall, scab a knee,
Yeah.
go for a bicycle ride, and have the wind blow in your hair, be made fun of, and I don't know,
Experience anger,
yeah,
pain, joy.
yeah, and experience
all
love or
of it.
whatever. Yeah, and like, are you up to it? Every flower in the world would be like 1,000,000%. Of course, of course, of course.
Yeah.
So it's like it's the experience of it all. Like
Mhm.
it's the fact that you can see a sunset, and maybe you just see it. The fact that you can witness a sunset, like even if there's no story around it,
Yeah.
that you can see the sun explode over the horizon. It's insane.
Mhm.
So there's a certain part of our life that's just like, it's like right under our eyes. It's right under our nose. It's right here. It's
Yeah.
like, just look out your window, breathe, realize that you literally can absorb energy through your nose, like free energy. Like, and then you're alive to the point where you're like, I can literally go to Italy. I can say hi to someone. I can smack them across the face. I have complete choice. I can do whatever the heck I want. It's
Yes.
insane. Complete freedom, complete choice of everything you want to feel. And even what we feel, we can change
Right.
with breath work, with movements. You can, if you sit upright, you feel better. You crouch over, you feel worse.
Yeah.
So like we have immediate access to like the most insane repertoire of experiences.
Yeah.
So I would say it goes beyond even emotion,
Just
because
emotions, just everything. Yeah.
when you really see a sunset and you're like, you can't speak because it's so beautiful. I don't know if I can call that an emotion.
Wow. Okay.
I don't know. Like, can you really describe that? Like maybe awe? I don't know. Like,
Yeah. Can you truly experience everything in the world in 80 plus years? It's
no,
impossible.
this is maybe me getting philosophical, but I think that's what human life is. Human life is that we love ourselves so much that we come back in the form of every creature, every crab that breaks its shell, every human, every cup of coffee. We come back every single time just to experience every single experience, to get to know us meaning the universe. So we get
a
to
fun mental framework
yeah.
for sure.
So it's just like this. I mean, from that framework, I don't think it's possible to get depressed.
Yeah.
Because you just realize the grand scheme of infinity, and you are infinity, getting to experience linear time.
And you enjoy it. Yeah.
It's insane. It's like, it's unreal. It's like the biggest, craziest joke. So we're jumping off the deep end here, but I also think it's actually super relevant because it's the reality that everyone's forgetting about. We're trying to build success Like you're literally a molecular structure.
Mm-hmm.
Like
Yeah.
there's no such thing as success. Your
Right.
job doesn't exist. Like
Yeah.
it's just our capacity to experience this world,
Right.
which is just molecular structure. I don't know. For me, I don't know if I'm getting too
You
heady
find
here,
you,
but
you find peace and contentment.
there's something
out of it.
crazy that you get to experience it, even if you
Yeah.
fail. Isn't that really cool?
I detect joy when you're coming from that place.
Yeah, it's exciting.
Yeah.
I mean, if you got to play in the Olympics and you knew you'd be the
Mhm.
last person, I mean, if I got to play in the Olympics, it would be hilarious. So maybe it would be embarrassing. But like, if I actually had a chance of playing and I completely failed,
Mhm.
I don't think there's any Olympian that regrets trying. I
Mhm.
mean, unless they have their head off, they're not working right.
Okay.
If they go,
yeah.
I tried and I failed.
All right, so let's.
They're gonna be like, I made
Yeah.
it to the Olympics. I got to experience being in Olympics.
Yeah.
Like you made it to life. You're
Mhm.
able to experience life. It's insane.
And here's how I
Yeah.
want to sum this up, guys. If you're experiencing this level of joy and what you're experiencing, do you need that extra cookie to feel even more joyful? Do I need to sit down and drink more alcohol to experience that joyful? This is why it's attached to health.
Right.
Learning this mental side and understanding that depression is a function. And it can also be, you can also train yourself to experience it. You can get out of it if you needed to, if it's an energy thing. That's why this piece is so important. And I wanted you guys to really grasp this because you have access to this now. If we don't, here's what happens. We eat more cookies, we drink more alcohol, and we don't get to the body that you want. When your body's creating what it's supposed to create, you can actually build it through an experience where you want to experience, and you're not wearing a mask in order for you to be able to just get it. If someone's experiencing this and, you know, they've got deep into this and you're like, man, yeah, like, why am I so tired? Why am I so depressed? What's one thing that you can, you know, tell them? Like, what's one thing they can do right now?
I would say the one thing they want to do is take a moment. I would say there's one thing to look at, and that's to just take a step back and review, okay, is it for me energy oriented? Am I not moving? Am I not breathing? Am I not going outside? Am I feeling connection to spirituality, God, myself, the universe, higher calling, a community? Am I feeling connected to my body? Am I feeling isolated? Like, just do a quick scan of like, how are you doing in those areas?
Yeah.
So if you're like, yeah, I'm feeling depressed and I haven't exercised in a month. Well, I mean, why don't you exercise for a month and then reassess?
Yeah.
So like, and then from there, from that vantage point, see, or maybe you're moving, but you're still feeling depressed. Okay, well, why don't you try taking a break and seeing how that feels? And then if it helps, then you have your answer. If it doesn't help, then it's not the answer.
Yeah.
So then you try something else. So I just think it's important. Like you have to find a way that you can drive your own boat.
Yeah.
And no one really can answer for you. You know, a coach is good because they're hopefully experienced enough. You get to experience what they're going and see their trajectory. But the point eventually is that you can teach them how to look at their own knee and assess.
Exactly.
So
yeah.
the point is that eventually you look at yourself and you can go, this is what I need to do. You know, it could be like just simple, like, nope, that wasn't it. Nope, that wasn't it. Or maybe, it helped me 10%. Okay, it's a part of it. What's the other 90%? Well, maybe something else.
Yeah.
So it's just be open, be explorative, and be curious because no one really can say for sure what your answer is. Yeah. So the place is to just be curious, try one thing, open-heartedly, really give it a shot, and then you'll either utilize it or drop it.
Guys, I think that's a good place to stop right there.
Yeah.
That nugget bomb right there.